Good day and welcome to our show, Voices of Veterans. And today we have a very special show for you today. We have veterans from the Korean War. From that time period, I should mention the Korean War has never ended. It's actually a ceasefire. Even when I was stationed in Korea, South Korea in 1971 or so, we were still facing down the North Koreans. And as you know, they have a new leader now and all sorts of things are still going crazy. But it is a war that really has never ended. It was in fact, it was not even a war. It was a police action by the United Nations, to be specific. However, let me introduce my guests. To my left, I have Roger Mack. After Roger, I have Airhola Mason. And also I have Don Cumhall. Welcome, gentlemen.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. And as you can see, the two gentlemen on the ends are wearing their garrison caps. However, Errol didn't want to wear his because he still has his hair, so he decided to put it on the table. That's okay. That's okay with us. Well, first of all, I'd like to mention that Roger and Don were in Korea. Errol was actually in World War II and then in Korea. He was a Marine, and then he became he joined the Army Air Force and became active in that area. So let's start here. And by the way, we are all members, and they are all of the American Legion Post 234. And in fact, the three gentlemen here are members of the Honor Guard, which we'll explain later on. Now, to my left, I have Roger Mack. Roger, welcome, my friend. Good to have you. So, Roger, what is your story? Let's go back to where you were drafted.
Well, it came about in 1951. I was 20 years old, and I didn't really want to be drafted because I was laid back, and I'll have to say this right now, being a soldier made a man out of me. But I got to also say this, I did not spend any time directly in Korea. I trained as a transportation duck driver and got into artillery and guarding the Panama Canal. That's as close as I got to Korea.
Did you say truck driver?
Amphibious ducks.
Oh, duck.
Are used.
That's how I heard you say duck driver. But
amphibious ducks were used at that time, and they still use them a lot to, well, probably not now, but they were used then to unload and load LSTs out in the harbor.
Mm-hmm. And what is an LSD? We need to explain.
It's a huge ship, probably 300 feet long, with the front of it opens right up, so that you can drive right up in there. And you've got to be careful because if there's a rough water, you can flip these ducks. There's 8 men to a duck, 8 bilge pumps, and it's very treacherous.
Oh, I see. Very interesting.
And I came back then and joined the American Legion. I've been in it for 56 years.
Wow, that's very nice. And right now you are service officer, is that correct?
I'm service officer and the membership chairman. Anybody wants to join, I'm right here to be talked to.
In fact, he drafted me, believe it or not. That's how I ended up in the American Legion. Well, that's very interesting. And what type of work did you do in civilian life?
Well, I came back and got myself hurt in a little bit of an accident doing construction work. I knew the superintendent of schools, called him to get a job being a custodian. He says, I don't have any jobs open for custodian, but that was in 1957 in October. I hired on as a bus driver and I drove for 40 straight years.
Wow. And
retired in 1997.
Did you say the Brunswick schools?
Brunswick City Schools.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Okay, Errol, we're going to turn to you now. Again, in World War II, you were a Marine. And once a Marine, always a Marine, they tell me. Is that true?
You got that right.
I thought so. And then for Korea, you were in the Army Air Force.
Later, they just changed the Air Force.
Okay.
And the uniform changed from the brown type uniform to the blue.
I see. Okay. So tell us, how did you get into the Army Air Force? Were you drafted, or did you join?
No. After I wasn't out of the Marines very long. A friend of mine told me about the
Navy was
the Army Air Force,
Oh.
you know, and we met once a month. And anyhow, and there was you attend the meetings, and there was a couple of bucks, you know, for it. And they flew to about all parts of the country, you know, for show. The plane was what they call the flying boxcar,
okay.
and we hauled equipment and also paratroopers, you know. And went down to Fort Bragg, you know, practicing with the Army down there and making jumps. And of course, you got jump pay if you made so many jumps, you know. So that was a little extra there, something for them. Anyhow, that's what I did. And I got into the Marines. Classification was I was a guard, and guard the perimeter, and did the same thing in the Air Force until I got into parachutes.
Oh, I see.
You know,
Okay.
then I didn't do that anymore. It was just strictly parachutes, and whenever we hauled a bus load, you know, a plane load of the Army, we had to have chutes for them.
Okay.
And the NATO forces.
And the NATO forces.
And the NATO forces.
Now, how was it that you were in Korea?
I never was in Korea.
Oh boy, we got two that have not been in Korea. I've not done my homework here. I assumed all of you.
I never was in Korea. Russia had shot down a couple of our planes, not our plane. A couple of our planes strayed over Russian territory, and we were given a path to follow, a speed to go at, you know, and if you deviated from that, they shot you down.
Oh, I see. Now, did not you serve in Panama, or you said you served somewhere when they were shooting at you? Where was that?
Oh, that was in Guam.
Guam. Okay.
That was in Guam. I was in the Marine Corps, and this is the island was secure, and the Japs had retreated back up into the hills.
Okay.
And they were sneaking in at night. Of course, they used to mix with the the natives, and on work details to get something to eat.
I see.
And then they would sneak back in and steal the food at night.
Wow.
You know. So there was always a half. Fact of the matter is, the last Marine to die in World War II was shot by a sniper on Guam.
Oh, I see.
That was either Christmas or a little 1945. That 4 months after the war was over.
I see. Wow. After the war.
This Marine was shot and killed by a sniper.
Oh my.
So they were in there, and they had to dig them out.
Okay.
Now that was the Marine Corps, and
Okay.
that in Korea, the Air Force was we were activated to go over there, and Russia was saber rattling.
You were in Korea then?
I wasn't in Korea.
Well, you just said, okay. Then I misunderstood. I thought you just said in Korea.
Could I
Okay.
say something?
Yes, please.
I think what we all mean here, we've been in during that time of the Korean War. He was in, but we never really set foot on the soil of Korea during the war. There were so many of them that went in during the same time of the Korean War, ended up in Germany. And so it's just a matter of timing.
Well, actually, I was on my way, stepping on a plane to Vietnam, and Nixon said, no more to Vietnam, and I ended up in South Korea instead, and others went to Texas, others went to Germany, etc. So that probably was what happened. Well, thank you for clarifying that. And one question, Errol, what did you do in your civilian life? What type of work?
I was a cop for a while.
Really?
Yeah, 10 years, but you know, I was mostly military time.
Oh, I see.
I was in the military, and of course my time went on, all that time. But mainly I was in a machine shop. I got a job in a machine shop right after World War II, and I held that job up until even during Korea, and I got a part-time job. I was fixing television sets. And I moved from the east side to the west side, and I didn't have any customers. And the ones I had on the east side, I didn't want to travel over there, you know, back and forth. So this job with driving the school bus seemed to me, and I had a chauffeur's license.
So you drove a school bus with Roger here? Oh, how about that? Okay, so you both worked for the Brunswick Schools.
Yeah.
And you both drove the school bus.
Right.
Okay. And did you do something after that, as I recall? You said there was something else that you had done.
Well, the only other thing was I was electrician for the plane dealer.
That's what I was looking for, the plane dealer. You had mentioned that.
That was my main job.
Oh, okay, that's what I was trying to remember.
That was the breadwinner, or what you know. Okay. And the driving the school bus was part-time.
Okay, I didn't know you were teammates at that time. That's wonderful. Now, Don, tell us your story. Probably from the point you were drafted?
Well, my mother got a notice from the draft board. It says, "Greetings, your friends and relatives, neighbors."
Yeah, always does.
Have decided that we want your service. So I went willingly. I was kind of anxious to. I was 19.
Right.
So I went and I took basic training at Camp Rucker in Alabama. I was surprised because we took a bus from Fort Meade to Fort Meade, and then we took a train from Fort Meade down to Alabama. Okay. And when we were in a sleeper car, and when we woke up, there was just nothing but red walls around me. I thought, where am I? So I thought, well, this has got to be fun. So we got off the train, and here I am in Camp Rucker, Alabama, not never knowing that I was that far south. Never been in Alabama. 1,000 miles from Cleveland.
That was like a foreign country to you.
Yeah, might as well be in a foreign country. But I took my basic training there, and for a year I was in the 47th Infantry Division.
Okay.
And then we went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and they brought the 3rd Infantry Division colors back from Korea at that time, and so we were transferred into the 3rd Infantry.
Okay.
So I wear the 3rd Infantry, but just as an adopted son, I guess, or whatever.
Adopted son. But what was your training in, your advanced training in?
I was in the infantry.
Infantryman.
Yes, I was in first 8 weeks of light infantry, and then you get into the heavy stuff, 8 more weeks.
Nice.
16 weeks total, and then I wound up in heavy mortar, 4.2 mortars.
Okay. I was in mortars myself, actually.
Oh, you were?
Yes, I was.
Oh, yeah. Well, so you know what the 4.2
Yes, I do.
is? Yeah. Yeah. So I wound up in the heavy mortars, and I was the fire direction chief.
Oh, okay.
So when we would plot a target, and then we would instruct the guns where to shoot, the coordinates.
I understand.
And
of course, now they have computers doing all that. We used to have a dial thing. We used to have to dial in information in this big round instrument of some sort. I can't even remember what it was called.
oh yeah, like a protractor. Or
Yes,
something.
that's right.
So that was, so I basically my MOS, I can't remember what it was, but I think it was 1312, or give me my...
Well, mortars is 11 Charlie. I know that now. So
Is what?
11 Charlie is mortars.
Oh, 11
MOS, yes.
Oh.
That was
Oh.
my classification.
Uh-huh.
Well, and what about Korea? Well, you said you came into Korea at the end. Is that correct?
I never got to Korea because I was in basic training for a month, learn how to do all that, how to use that equipment. Had a crawl through the infiltration course with the heavy 30s firing over my head, not realizing that I don't want to stand up. So, but then a month later they settled. Like you said, it was never settled. It was
That's the ceasefire,
a
actually.
ceasefire.
That's right.
So then naturally I didn't get over there.
Oh, I see.
Although I wouldn't have hesitated to go to do my duty.
I understand.
So,
Okay.
but
Can I add something to this?
Oh, certainly.
You keep asking us whether we've been in Korea. I've been out there in the field recently talking to a good many men that had been in the field. And they absolutely do not want to come in here and be televised. They went through enough,
yeah,
what they went through on the ground. And the last one that I had that would come in from this, and Tim knows this man, almost had tears in his eyes when
Adam
he tried
Bowen.
he tried to explain this. And it just seems that the veterans that really were in the down and dirty battle,
oh,
they don't want to talk about it.
I can see why. That's if I was up there at the Yalu River, freezing my feet off, I wouldn't want to be here either. But
Okay.
a lot of guys suffered terribly.
Yes, Adam Bowen, you're referring to Adam. We had hoped he'd be here today, but he was not feeling well. And he has a wonderful poem that he loves to read. Roger, at the end, is going to read this poem for him, for us, and I think you will find it quite touching. Another person that could have been here is John Marinchek.
Right.
One funny story about John, because John and Roger had spoken to my military class at Tri-C, where I teach military history. And I had asked him the question, how were you treated when you returned from the war? Because we as Vietnam-era veterans were treated rather poorly. And he said, are you kidding? They didn't even know we were gone. I came up to one guy and he says, where you been for the last 2 years? In prison? In jail? I haven't seen you for a while. So they were also somewhat forgotten. That's why they call it the Forgotten War, is because a lot of people did not feel that they were gone like they did in World War II. World War II, you had people drafted, you had Rosie the Riveter, everyone was doing their duty, everyone was involved. But when we got to the Korean War, it was out of sight, out of mind. When we got to the Vietnam War, pretty much out of sight, out of mind as well. Okay, gentlemen, I believe we have about 1 minute left. So we're going to now cease talking, and we're going to give Roger a chance to deliver the poem called A Vet Died Today.
A veteran died today, author unknown. He was getting old and punchy. His hair was falling fast as he sat around the TV or at the VFW and American Legion telling stories of the past, of a war that he had fought in and the deeds that he had done. In his exploits with his buddies, they were heroes, every one. And although sometimes to his neighbors his tales became a joke, all his buddies listened, for they knew whereof he spoke. But we shall hear his tales no longer, for old Herb has passed away, and the world a little poorer, for a veteran has died today. No, he won't be mourned by many, just his children and his wife, for he lived an ordinary, quiet sort of life. He held a job and raised a family, going quietly on his way, and the world won't note his passing, but a veteran died today. When politicians leave this earth, their bodies lie in state, while thousands note note their passing and proclaim they were great. Papers tell of their life stories from the time that they were young, but the passing of a veteran goes on unnoticed and unsung. The rich and famous stipend and the style in which they live are often disproportionated to the service that they give, while the ordinary veteran who offered up his all is paid off with a medal and perhaps pension small. It's so easy to forget them, but it was so long ago. For our soldier and Jakes and Johnnies went to battle, but we remember and we know. He was just a common veteran, and his ranks are growing thin, but his presence should remind us we may need his likes again. And when countries are in conflict, we find the military's part is to clean up all the trouble other people start. If we cannot do him honor while he's here to accept the praise, then at least let's give him homage at the ending of his days. Perhaps a simple headline in the evening paper that might say, "Our country is in mourning, for a veteran died today." Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roger. That was very, very nice. Thank you.
I might add that that's actually John Bowden's, and you should know about him.
Yes, again, he couldn't be with us today, but we did want to give his message. He read this in my class, and it's very, very meaningful. At this time, I'd like to thank Roger, Errol, and Don for joining us today. And most importantly, I want to thank them for their service. It's wonderful that they gave their time to serve our country. And also, I'd like to say one more thing. For those young veterans out there, or soon-to-be veterans, make sure you use your GI Bill. That is so, so important. That's going to take you a long way. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.